Wednesday night. That means it's Words here with Kel Richards. He's joining me now from Sydney. We're also launched last week, we'll do it again this week, the Sky News website bonus, an extended version of this chat with Kel, and a whole lot of other words we'll go through tonight, and we'll have that online for you tomorrow. But without further ado, we've got a few to get through today. You've suggested, Kel, that we should have a word of the week. You know, the word that's not necessarily new, but the word that just dominates debate. Now, I'm going to call it already. I think it's got to be sovereignty. A lot's been spoken about it since Lydia Thorpe quit the Greens. Give us the definition of sovereignty.
Okay, the short definition is supreme authority over others. That's what sovereignty is. It came into English 1300s from Norman French and Old French, and it had that idea of there is a sovereign. It was when there was a single monarch who was a sovereign and had sovereignty, had supreme authority over others. Now, that's no longer the case. We don't have a single sovereign. So what does that mean for the word sovereignty? Well, Bronwyn Bishop was saying to me she thinks the word sovereignty no longer has any meaning because the sovereign is now just a symbol and real powers transferred to the Parliament. Mind you, the Americans, after the War of Independence, 1776, said sovereignty had transferred, because of their independence, from the British sovereign to the people. So sovereignty, they said, now resides with all the people, all the citizens of the United States. So that's probably the best modern political account of sovereignty, that supreme authority actually resides with all the citizens, the population of a country. Not with a part of the population of a country, but with all the population. That's what makes it sovereignty. Now, does that make sense, do you think?
I think it does when you're talking particularly about a constitutional monarchy, and I think when Australia was settled, we were in that position anyway. Certainly Britain was in that position. So it will be an interesting, for the constitutional lawyers to chew over, interesting debate with the comments from people like Lydia Thorpe, and I guess where a lot of people want this voice to go. It's just the first step in the way to Aboriginal co-governance and more. Let's go to some words from our readers. Over the weekend, the Weekend Australian on Saturday had a new word. I've not seen it before. Obesogenic society, they said. Now, I think I can work out from the root what we're talking about, but obesogenic, is that new?
Fairly new, 1983. Obese, very old word, comes from a Latin background meaning, as you would expect, fat or stout. But obesogenic, coined in 1983, like carcinogenic, inclined to make people obese, it's obesogenic. If it's carcinogenic, it's inclined to give people cancer. So obesogenic means inclined to make people obese. And you can have an obesogenic diet. I mean, if you have a lot of fats and sugars and so on, it's an obesogenic diet. You could have an obesogenic environment if you live surrounded by fat people and fat food outlets. I found it odd when the newspaper report said that Australia is an obesogenic society, because I would have thought good, healthy food options are more widely available in the early 21st century than they have been for a long time. But that's what obesogenic means.
Well, probably less personal responsibility than ever before. Over the weekend, I picked this one up. I thought I'd save it for you tonight. Laurie Oakes, the media journalist, tweeted about an ABC radio report. This was in relation to the Chinese spy balloon. And the ABC said the balloon was descending downwards. This is the stuff that
wonderful.
You just got to, laugh about.
Of course. It's called a tautology. And a tautology is when you say the same thing in a couple of words, one after another. So it's verbal redundancy unnecessarily. That is tautology. Comes from an old Hellenistic Greek word, tautologos, saying again. And, this is someone, if they're broadcasting live on radio, then maybe they didn't have time to run it through the checker in their brain. If they were doing it online, then you've got to proofread before you click send. But it descended downwards. Downwards means descending. Descending means downwards. I mean, it's nonsense, isn't it?
It happens all the time. Pick one from our good friend in Waniasa, Kel. His name is Anthony. He wants to know, is it okay to say Anthony Albanese or do we have to say Albanese?
No, Albanese. And the reason is when I was on SCOS at the ABC, the Standing Committee on Spoken English, what we did was we checked with the person whose name it was. And I can remember sending a young reporter to Joe Bjelke-Petersen and recording how he said his name. And Albanese says Albanese. So that's the rule. The way he says it is the way we say it.